Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Flowers. God, these lights are bright. I run a skunk works out of Mayor Bloomberg's office that is dedicated to figuring out what we can do with the data in the city of New York to improve the day-to-day lives of our citizenry. In other words, I have the best job on the planet. I get to do pretty much anything I want. People leave me alone, and I run a great group of kids. So let me just launch into a couple of things really fast. It's interesting, a couple of people, and I'm going to wander away from the podium, I apologize, I can't stand these things. Somebody mentioned 311 being a problem because sometimes it's geared towards who's complaining versus where the problems are. We have that problem constantly in New York City. This is a heat map of illegal conversions. An illegal conversion is where a landlord chops up an apartment that is zoned safely for 6, and he jams 60 people into it, pretty much for money. As you can see, it's a density map, and it looks like Lower Manhattan. It blows up like a tomato. That's where our big problems are. However, when you compare that with vacates are when they actually show up to the location, and it is really bad, so bad that you have to empty the building. This is a photographic negative of our 311 map, so we have a big efficiency problem. We're going after where the complaints are versus where the problems are. So what my group did was just deconstruct them in the data, very basic, simple algorithm, figure out what metrics correlate in one of those illegally converted structures, correlate with a catastrophic outcome, to wit, a deadly fire. Tax lien just means if you're a deadbeat on your taxes, you're going to have a very high rate of structural fire. Same goes for lis penens, that's just legalese for you're in foreclosure. Complaint, this is just prior illegal conversion complaint. But it really popped, right, when you looked at it. And so this was our way of targeting those locations by risk instead of by complaint, although complaint matters. And why was this good? Well, obviously, the places, when I say target, that's the place we've identified as high risk, much more likely to have a fire than when it's not a target, doesn't have those metrics I showed earlier. Firefighter injuries, this is going to be particularly relevant as I kind of slow down a little bit towards the end of the presentation. But obviously, we want to go and remediate conditions where our firemen are being injured and killed. So it had a tremendous impact. It was a nice, simple, quick algorithm. The Department of Buildings easily jumped on it, was able to implement it right away. We went literally from 13% to 70% inside of a month. And that's been sustained over the course of the last 14 months now. But, you know, I'll get to why that may not be entirely the full story. But the fact is that methodology, small footprint, break down what we knew as a city about the bad outcomes before we send our resources there, and then send our resources there based on the risk of a bad outcome can be replicated across everything we do. Yellow grease is slightly less sexy than fire, but it's a similar problem for us. Causes when DEP is the water department, BIC is a business integrity commission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What this really shows in many ways is kind of a reflection of what somebody was talking about with Jane Jacobs. When you push one place on the city, another place is going to pop up. And that's what this reflects. People dump yellow grease down the drain. It actually impacts your water supply. It impacts fire safety. It impacts a number of different things. So what we came up with was an analytic that was very similar to what we did with fire. It's just very simple algorithm that just used what we knew about our locations before we sent our resources out. And we sent them out in a very complimentary way. I apologize for Staten Island being covered up to a certain degree. But the black triangles are clogged drains. Clogged drains lead us to who's dumping the yellow grease. But, and the thing I really like about this, instead of going to the clogged drainers and the drain cloggers, excuse me, and whacking them up, we sat down with them and linked them up with our biodiesel companies. Our biodiesel company, we like biodiesel. It's nice. It smells like French fries instead of gas. So that's where we want our New Yorkers to be sending their grease, right? And so instead of banging up a restaurant for a fine, a small business that we care very deeply about and generates jobs, we actually try and generate them some revenue. And it's all a great way to use our data more effectively. Now, this is the kind of the part I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. I know I'm running out of time. I'm sorry, I'm a New Yorker. So how was I able to do all this? I have a really small staff. I started out with one guy, and now I've grown to 5. They're all pretty young, younger than me anyway. We got started on some pretty crap computers, and we used Microsoft Excel, and no one knew who the hell we were. But all of those were positives, right? We had the right data. The city of New York has wonderful data on its outcomes and its complaints and everything else. we had the right human intelligence. What does that mean? I went down and talked to the agencies. I went out in the field. I love going out in the field. It's a blast. I used to be a prosecutor. One of my favorite parts of the job was going to talk to the cops and do crime scene visits. This is the version of that I get to do now, right? I get to crawl under a bad building and see why it's bad. What does the inspector know about it? What makes it tick? That's the kind of things I like to pay attention to. Finally, and we also got on the phone. I hate email. Sorry. I need to talk to these people. These are government employees. They deserve my respect, and that respect is translated to me directly contacting them. And then finally, in terms of the job, we made it very doable and usable from the get-go. So, and by that I mean it was a simple prioritization by risk of what they already do. So it was a small footprint. That's why it worked. I know I'm way over. I apologize, John. I just want to kind of hit myself here a little bit. This is a Daily News article that came out the Sunday before Chris Vian very nicely invited us all down to the White House, blasting us, telling us that we suck because we didn't fix the problem inside of 6 months. This is a complaint that was filed by the Firemen's Union, blasting us because we are acting contrary to the collective bargaining agreement. Over here, this was a failure to recognize, even though that analytic only goes to a very small proportion of properties that people get complaints on, this is where the problems are. That's what we focus on. It's just very tough to get the story told the right way, at least for me. I'm not very good at it. And over here, we won this. We've won like at least 9 of these now, right? We get complaints a lot. Now, that's not to knock the unions. I love the unions. I actually do, because it's their members whose insight I'm scouring and then translating into data. What we have to do is recognize that these people have tons more experience than any of us about what they do on a day-to-day basis, and figure out a way to leverage it and show them the respect that we're trying to, that says to them, we are trying to leverage your experience. Doesn't mean you have to be friends. At least in New York, we're fine with not being friends, but we will, but we'll do what we need to do to get the job done. And why? Because this, I love this, is like a lava lamp. Shaped like New York City. What this really is just a heat map broken down by day, temperature, of where our highest, most life-threatening EMS calls go, right? And so what we're trying to do, and it's in its most nascent phase, by the way, is figure out where we can put our ambulances such that they can respond more quickly. Why is this here at this now, but that we have to do it part? Because even though our resources are diminishing on a regular basis, these numbers keep going up. People keep getting sick. People keep moving into buildings that cause problems. People keep having fires. We as a city have an obligation to service them. So if we don't do this, if we don't use our data more effectively, we are not going to be able to do the job that we are supposed to do. It's why we're here. We are the government of the people, by the people, for the people. We are here to serve them. Thank you.